welcome to the November edition of the Community Producers. I am Doris Wagner and we are here at Dick Murphy Park enjoying this beautiful fall day. Today we're going to hear an exciting announcement about the former Fields Sawmill site near the 17th Street Bridge in Courtenay. Catherine Temple is reporting while snorkeling with the salmon in the Campbell River. We're going to take you behind the scenes of some popular cultural Courtenay venues. A former refugee from Laos is sharing her harrowing story of escape. But first, Mark Hanley reports from the Courtenay River.
If you're a Valley resident, you could be forgiven if you can't really remember Fields Sawmill. It's been closed for over a decade, but from 1949 until 2005, it was a going concern in the Comox Valley.
That was then, and this is now. The site is currently a sad introduction to our fair valley. Hopefully, that is about to change, and the old mill site will become Couscous Sum, a restored habitat for wildlife and people. Partners, the City of Courtenay, Project Watershed, and Comox First Nations have started this process.
The Fields Sawmill site came up as a top priority, or one of the main priorities that people felt needed to change. We got in touch with Inter4 and found out in about 2014 that they were interested in a conservation solution, and that meant a lot to us. That meant that they were looking for a way that this could become something the community would value again. At the moment, we've got a signed contract that we are going to create that purchase and sale contract, and we've got an agreement that we are going to be working together to purchase this property, to purchase and restore this property.
Many in the valley were very excited to hear the news about Couscous Sum. And almost the first question everyone asked, what about contamination on the site?
To the best of our knowledge, it is not contaminated. They do have a certificate of compliance that is actually at a higher level, so they've met a higher level of certification than they would have to have met today, because the standards were higher when that site was decommissioned. So, to the best of our knowledge, it is a clean site, and it has been cleared for the use of marine and aquatic life.
In a process that is outside the regular treaty negotiations, the Comox First Nations is an active partner in this reclamation project. It means a great deal to the community.
Well, I think the site is culturally significant to our people. If you look through our history, it was used, that site, as a burial site for our ancestors over time. We did tree burials in tree boxes, and it's obviously of cultural significance from that aspect, as well as the site that we're actually standing on right now was a fishing village for our people pre-settlement and right through a number of years into settlement.
Even with the certification, this is a costly project, and it has many challenges.
So the total cost of the project is going to be $6.5 million, and we're thinking that's going to take about 5 years to come up with and work with. A lot of that will be coming from major granting agencies as well as the federal, provincial governments, but we are looking for around $500,000 from the local community, $100,000 of which we have to raise before December 20th of this year.
The long-term objective with Couscous Sum is to create an environment for wildlife and people.
With my work with Project Watershed, it's always been kind of like a thorn in the side of our beautiful valley, and it is really important to me personally for this site to be restored. I think it would not only benefit the wildlife of the Comox Valley, but also the human community.
I think just seeing the site restored to a natural habitat and increasing the fish that was heavily impacted in our riverway through dredging and industrial use is really important to our people. Obviously, green space is something we feel very strongly about, and the environment as stewards of the land of plenty in the valley here and throughout our territory, it's really key for our people to see that happen.
In the Comox Valley, for Shaw TV, I'm Mark Hanley.
Thank you for that, Mark. We look forward to tracking the developments. And now let's join Catherine Temple in another river, the mighty Campbell.
CampbellRiver.com, bringing to you the 5 things you didn't know about the Campbell River when you're snorkeling with the salmon. Number 1, Roderick Haig Brown was the first person to snorkel on the Campbell River. He actually had a great purpose for doing this because he was very concerned about what was going to happen to the salmon and the river itself if they built a dam. So he started to snorkel the river on a regular basis, and he kept intricate details on all kinds of things, like where the gravel was placed, where the salmon were spawning, and all kinds of data that now they use on a regular basis. They still snorkel the river, and it's been a good 60, 70, 80 years since Roderick did the first river snorkel. So now we have all this data from all these years that is highly accurate and very intimate. So we know an awful lot more about the Campbell than we know about a lot of other rivers. Number 2, the Campbell River is tidal affected right up to the second bridge. That's about 1.5 kilometers from the actual estuary itself. And you can really take note when you're snorkeling that you can see the thermocline in between the salt water, which rests on the bottom, and the fresh water that rests on the top. Now this is important because you want to be snorkeling the river when the tide is coming in, pretty much at the top of the flood, because that salt water is also bringing in the fish. And that's where you're going to see the majority of them in the bottom end of the river here. That'll be the first time they're in. They go back out, then they start coming in again. So they get acclimatized to the river and the fresh and the salt water as they go up and down. So time your snorkel on a flood tide. Number 3, like with any river, the Campbell River's volume fluctuates. Now we're sitting right here and we're looking at about 40 cubic meters per second going down the river right now, but it can fluctuate between 26 cubic meters per second and 700 cubic meters per second, which is what you're going to see when we have some really heavy rain events. So come on down to the Campbell River and take a look when it's raining, because this place is going to have a lot of water in it. Number 4, rivers are in constant motion, and with that motion the river actually moves gravel down the river itself. Now we're standing in a bed of gravel right now. Well, when you dam a river, you don't have that gravel coming down, naturally speaking. So the Campbell River is artificially planted with gravel, and that's done by conservation groups such as the Campbell River Salmon Foundation and the BC Conservancy organization. Now what ends up happening is that all this river congregates in certain areas and actually changes the course of the river, which is really quite natural. This is not something that's man-made, but it offers the salmons redds in order to build their nest to lay their eggs. Number 5, we have 5 species of salmon that come home to the Campbell River to spawn. The first species that comes in happens around mid-July to late July, and those are the pink salmons. Now they can come in really big numbers, but they're quite a small fish. They're a 2-year fish, so a 3 to 5 pound is pretty normal for a pink. Then we get a little run of coho, and right after the coho in come the Chinooks. Now the Chinooks will run right up to early September, maybe mid-September, and after they're done we see the chum. Now the chum they can be pretty big. They're about a 4 to 5 year cycle and get up to about they can get up to about 40 pounds. So they're a pretty good sized fish. We also have resident steelhead. Now steelhead can actually live in the river for a couple of years before they go out to sea, and their life cycle can be as long as 9 years. Contrary to popular belief, we do not have a run of sockeye in the Campbell River. Although we've seen sockeye in the river, they're kind of on the wrong path. We see them very rarely. They're really striking because they're very red. So come on down and experience this, because this is one heck of a primal experience.
Snorkeling with the salmon, a truly quintessential experience in Campbell River. But now let's go behind the scenes of a couple of much loved Courtney venues with Kate Brown.
The Sid Williams Theatre behind me, started in 1935. Then it was the Bickle Theatre, and it was a movie theatre. However, in 1968, there was a big fire at the Riverside Hotel right next door, and it nearly burned to the ground. But the community rallied around, and after a lot of fundraising, they raised enough money and they renovated the Sid into the Sid Williams Theatre. And it opened in 1971.
Sid Williams felt that, there isn't really a proper performance place for our many actors and dancers and musicians, and so the idea was, can we possibly convert this old movie theatre to something that people can use?
Named after Sid Williams, who performed and managed the theatre until the early 90s, the Sid has become the centre of theatre and entertainment in the Comox Valley. Now community theatre groups perform here, touring companies present, and the Sid sets the stage for events, lectures and films.
Some of the things that make this theatre special is the community has a real attachment to it going back to the 1930s when it was a live movie theatre. And converted into a live performance theatre, one of the big slogans of Sid Williams, who's the theatre's namesake, was total community participation. And that's really ultimately what's so special about this place today is the people on stage, the people who support us with their donations, the people who come and watch performances, and of course the performers on stage. And this, from the minute I moved here, I felt right away that the community was unique in the sense that there were so many people who were passionate about the performing arts here, compared with even Vancouver, where I live in per capita. There just seemed to be so much energy towards the arts, and a lot of it centers around this theatre.
Behind the scenes, Patrick makes sure the lights are up, the sound is perfect, and the show goes on.
When a show comes in beforehand, but even before a show comes into the building, I've contacted their production manager to find out what the requirements are as far as lighting, sound. I have to have the correct crew here waiting for their arrival. And then we do all the lighting hang, the equipment setup, and in often cases running the shows. But the quality that comes out of this community, Courtney Theatre has won numerous awards at drama festivals across BC. And these are people who just do it because they love it. They enjoy bringing characters to life. And whether they're in one production where they're on stage, the next one they might be backstage helping with hair. They might be running props. They might be doing publicity, but it's a complete effort with the community.
With a converted movie theatre like this versus a theatre that's built for a live performance purpose, a lot of it is make-fit. We're making a lot of things work with a smaller stage space, with limited wing space. So there's a lot of inventiveness that goes on to make productions work. Sometimes we have Arts Club Theatre might come in with a very large set. When they get to our stage, they realize, oh, we have to kind of redesign the set a little bit on the fly because it won't quite fit. Or we have, we have performers that play in concert halls with a 2,000 seat seating capacity. So we have to somehow figure out how to make the show affordable for our 500 seat theater so that our ticket prices aren't, over $100. And sometimes we do that by way of donors or sponsors that help support the event. So there's a lot of different ways the community can support the theater. On any given production, if you look at an event program or you talk to the theater personnel that are there, it's surprising how many different places people in the community who aren't necessarily in the production have made it possible for the production to happen. Every single show is like that.
In the Comox Valley, I am Kate Brown. The Old Church Theatre is operated by the Cove Val choristers, and the heart and soul that runs the place is Beryl Regier.
The acoustics are the best acoustics probably on the island.
The Old Church Theatre was originally the Catholic Church, built in 1938. In the 90s, it was renovated as a performing arts venue.
Well, it was meant to be a preservation of the building because it definitely is a significant building in the Comox Valley. And rather than have it bulldozed down, which might have been its demise, people decided to try to preserve it. So we worked with the Catholic community to buy it. We had to fundraise for various things. It wasn't just to purchase the building, but to renovate it. Because once it becomes new ownership, then your building code changes drastically, and so there was a lot of work had to be done on the building. The main company at this point is the Covell Choristers, of course, and right now also Danette Bell's Love to Perform is here on a regular basis, and then other people may rent it. It could be the Festival of Performing Arts, it could be recitals, films, all kinds of weddings in particular. Well, there have been some spectacular performances done on this facility. One of them in particular was Covell Choristers' production of Titanic. With guest performances, we've done a number this past year, which has been, we've had professionals, we've been working with the professionals. And this is Heather Burns, who's been a local girl, and we worked with her in the fall. We just came off of a concert with Glenn Montgomery from Montreal, who's a professional pianist. And we've been working with the professionals. They've taken a good interest in this building, love to perform here. And so in combination with other community performers, they have helped us fundraise.
Kate Brown for those reports. After a short break for announcements, we'll be back with a story of an intergenerational smorgasbord of roots, rhythm, and grooves.
Request access to air your content on the community producers. Volunteer with us. Join a free TV workshop. Check out these websites.
Thanks to the support of the Comox Valley Community Foundation, Cumberland Recreation has purchased universally accessible toys for our Parent and Taught Gym program. Thanks in part to the support of the CVCF, the Courtenay Recreational Association provides much-needed social, instructional, and fitness programs to adults with developmental disabilities.
They are a generation apart, but when it comes to music, they are definitely on the same page. What they create is magic.
Talk to you, talking to everyone.
Rick Scott and Nico Rhodes formed the group Roots and Grooves. Born from Appalachian mountains with a dulcimer, you got classical music, jazz, a keyboard. These two are 40 years apart, but you'd never know it because they have such great chemistry on stage.
'Cause you're just skin and bones, to your dust to dust. To get what you need, you gotta do what you must. I get.
You may have recognized Rick Scott's name throughout the eons because he's been with Pied Pumpkin, Pied Pear, he's been a children's entertainer, he's traveled around the world, he's been on TV, he's basically been everywhere, done everything.
So what do you like about Roots and Grooves?
I like the roots and I like the grooves. I mean, it's actually the opportunity to play with Nico is what I really like. Here's this young man who's got the fire that is it's just so infectious, and he has the chops, which are just unbelievably awesome, and he's just a dear human being to begin with, and so that's what I love about it. We cover all the bases when we play together.
Talk to you, talk to everyone.
So Nico, I understand you sent Rick Scott a fan letter when you were 8 years old.
I was the biggest fanboy. My playlist when I was a kid was Beethoven, Jerry Lee Lewis, Charlie Parker, and Rick Scott. And there was just kind of a continuous cycle of that. And I wrote Rick a letter when I was quite young because I'd lost a tooth. And he advised me that there might be money involved. So I very, very much appreciated that. I made a couple dollars off of that exchange. And then we crossed paths throughout the years. I followed him and saw him when I was 12 on Newcastle Island, and eventually orchestrated his children's show for the Vancouver Island Symphony, and that brings us to where we are today. It's been quite the journey.
Music is such a healing power that Rick was able to recuperate from pneumonia by singing with Nico in his living room in Protection Island, and they have brought this to a whole new level with Roots and Grooves.
And why the dulcimer?
Why? What I really want to say is why not? The dulcimer called me. The dulcimer was hanging on a wall in a music store that I walked into. I'd never seen one before, and I just stood staring at it. 2 hearts for sound holes? That's an amazing thing, having a heart for a sound hole. And so I gave it a strum, and it said, "Take me home." And I did, and life has never been the same.
And how long ago was that?
This was in 1969. You do the math. Okay?
You've been performing a long time.
Well, I was performing before that too, but yeah, I was 15 when I started out in the world.
Well, as a jazz musician, because you are part of the Nico Rhodes Trio, then you also like having spontaneity in your music.
Absolutely, and that was an interesting part of Rick and I's relationship, is that we come from very different musical backgrounds, but we have a very intrinsically symmetrical and compatible musical kind of ideology and approach. And we both value the groove and the emotion above all else. And so everything stems from that. And so, and as we've explored this together, we've become more and more spontaneous, more and more free to explore things on the fly. And I have a feeling it'll just get better with time.
Thanks to the Visitor Center, where we were able to do this interview in the beautiful boardroom. From the Vancouver Island Visitor Center, this is Judy Murakami for Shaw TV.
And now we join Cami Kwan, who is sharing part of her life story, how she fled her country of birth and eventually ended up in Campbell River.
My name is Cami Kwan. I am a former refugee from Laos. I came to Canada in 1979. I stayed in Thailand camp, Nong Khai camp for only half year, and then we came to Canada. I fled from Laos, just me and my son. I carry my baby, and then I had one basket, some little food with me. And then we ran to the rice field, and rice field had all the muddy and really difficult for me to run, but I was so very lucky that some friend came with us and helped me to carry the baby. And then they told us, okay, we should walk to the Mekong River now. Then we walked middle of the night, like about 20 of us. So we walked, and we were very hungry and thirsty. We had no food. We were tired. We started walking toward to the Mekong River bank, and then the guy told us, jump down, get into the canoe. So everybody jumped down, and here I am carrying my baby. I cannot jump. I'm afraid of height, and he just pushed me and the baby. So we roll over on the sand and then get into the canoe in the middle of the river, and canoe was sunk. Then the kids were crying, but good thing the water is not so deep. So we made it to Nong Khai side. Then somebody came, picked her up and took us to the camp. So then I met my husband there. Soon I land in the airport, the land in Canada, that I feel safe. Because in this country, they always take good care of the human being. Me and my family really glad that we came to Canada. So now Canada is our home, especially for my children. They had good career for 3 of them. I had 3 sons. I like to volunteer in the community, and also I volunteer at the Welcome Center too, a lot too. So since I used to be a client for Immigration Center, and now I am volunteer with them, and I am also an employee for them, just part-time. Yeah, I am organizing for the International Women Group. I really like that to help all the newcomer women. For my children future, so that's how I encourage myself. I have to do this for my children, for my boy.
Thanks to Kwan for sharing that story, which was produced by the Immigrant Welcome Center in Campbell River. One of the great gifts of community TV is giving its members a voice. Contact us if you think community TV might be for you. We're always looking for storytellers. Well, our show has come to an end, and I hope you have enjoyed hearing from our various community members. For the community producers, I'm Doris Wagner, and thanks for watching.